9 meters beneath the Atlantic, off a wind-swept island at the edge of France, something is lying in the dark that should not be there. It is not a shipwreck. It is not a natural reef. It is a wall, 120 meters long, built from stone, standing where the ocean floor drops into a drowned valley. And according to the team who found it, this wall was already ancient before the pyramids of Giza had a single block laid, before Stonehenge's first stone was raised, before writing existed anywhere on Earth. It was built more than 7,000 years ago by people history has always assumed were too primitive for this kind of engineering. For decades, the story of human civilization has followed a simple script. Hunter-gatherers wandered, foraged, and survived until agriculture arrived, and with it, the first real architecture. Farming came first, monuments came after. That was the order. That was the rule. This wall breaks the rule. The people who built it hadn't yet learned to farm. They were still hunting, still fishing, still moving with the seasons, and yet they organized themselves well enough to quarry, transport, and stack thousands of tons of granite into a structure that has survived 7 millennia of Atlantic storms. Now the question haunting the researchers who found it isn't just how, it's why. Why would a mobile society of hunter-gatherers commit this much labor, this much coordination, this much permanence to a single wall? What were they protecting? What were they trapping? What were they afraid of? And why does local legend, passed down for generations in this exact stretch of coastline, speak of a city the sea swallowed whole? In 2017, retired French geologist Yves Fouquet was examining high-resolution LiDAR charts of the seabed near Île de Sein, a small, rugged island off Brittany's western tip. He noticed something the ocean floor shouldn't produce on its own, a perfectly straight line, roughly 120 meters long, cutting across an underwater valley. Nature rarely draws straight lines. Confirmation took years. Between 2022 and 2024, teams from the Society of Archaeology and Maritime Memory conducted dozens of dives, nearly 60 in total, in some of the harshest diving conditions in the region, battling strong currents and poor visibility. What they mapped, roughly 9 meters below the surface, was a deliberate stone construction, a wall averaging 20 meters wide and up to 2 meters tall, built from granite monoliths set in pairs at regular intervals, reinforced with smaller packing stones. Its estimated mass, around 3,300 tons. The team named it TAF-1, after Toul Arfot, Breton for Hole of the Wave. By reconstructing ancient shorelines in sea level data, researchers dated its construction between roughly 5,800 and 5,300 BCE. That places it centuries before Stonehenge and thousands of years before Egypt's pyramids. The findings were published in the International Journal of Nautical Archaeology, with archaeologist Yvonne Payer of the University of Western Brittany noting that the discovery reshapes how coastal societies of this era are understood, revealing a level of organization not typically credited to hunter-gatherer groups. What was it for? Researchers have proposed 2 leading explanations: a fish trap, designed to funnel schools of fish into an enclosure as tides receded, a known Mesolithic practice across Europe, or a protective barrier against rapidly rising post-glacial sea levels. The problem is scale. The wall is significantly larger than typical fish weirs would require for the local tidal range. The study's authors themselves raise, carefully and speculatively, the possibility that the loss of this coastal landscape to the rising sea may have echoed for generations, potentially feeding into local Breton legends of Ys, a mythical city swallowed by the ocean. Here is the inconsistency that keeps archaeologists awake at night. This wall predates the very people we credit with megalith building. Brittany is famous for its standing stones, the alignments at Karnak among the most recognizable prehistoric monuments in Europe, built by early Neolithic farming communities. TAF-1's monoliths bear a striking resemblance to those stones. Except TAF-1 came first, centuries first, built not by settled farmers with surplus food and specialized labor, but by mobile hunter-gatherers, a population traditionally assumed to lack the social structure for large coordinated building projects. That timeline doesn't just add a new data point, it rewrites the sequence.
If hunter-gatherers were building megalithic-style structures before farming even reached the region, then the techniques, the knowledge of quarrying, transporting, and erecting multi-ton stones didn't originate with agricultural societies at all. They were inherited, passed down. The breakthrough here isn't a single dramatic reveal. It's the layered, patient result of new technology meeting old mystery. LiDAR seabed mapping, refined enough to catch a single anomalous straight line across kilometers of ocean floor, gave researchers a starting point no previous survey method could have offered. If AI enters this conversation, and increasingly it does in modern archaeology, it's worth being precise about its role. AI-assisted image analysis can help researchers process massive volumes of sonar and LiDAR data faster than human analysts alone, flagging potential man-made structures across huge stretches of seabed. It can assist in reconstructing ancient coastlines by modeling sea level change. What it cannot do is tell us why these people built what they built, or what they believed. That remains, and likely always will remain, a human question. Not every expert agrees on what this means, and that disagreement is itself part of the story. Some researchers urge caution against over-interpreting the wall's scale, noting that fish weirs of considerable size are documented elsewhere in prehistoric Europe. Others argue the sheer labor investment, an estimated 3,300 tons of coordinated stonework, implies a level of social organization that challenges long-held models of Mesolithic life. There is no institutional cover-up here, no hidden agenda. This is, refreshingly, science working exactly as it should: publish, debate, revise. But the tension is real. The conventional explanation: TAF-1 is an unusually large fish trap, built by resourceful maritime hunter-gatherers exploiting tidal patterns for food security. The alternative theory: the wall represents a deliberate, large-scale response to existential threat, rising seas swallowing hunting and fishing grounds, built by a far more socially complex society than we've historically credited to this period. The skeptical position: without more comparable sites, drawing sweeping conclusions may be premature. One structure, however impressive, is a data point, not necessarily a paradigm shift.
Strip away the granite and the tonnage, and what's left is something quietly human. People. Thousands of years before writing, before farming, before anything we typically call civilization, looking at a rising sea and deciding to fight back. Together, deliberately, at scale. Maybe it was survival. Maybe it was fear. Maybe, in some form we can't fully reconstruct, it was memory. A story of loss, retold for so many generations that it hardened into legend, into a city swallowed by the waves. What this wall really challenges isn't just a scientific timeline. It's the comfortable assumption that sophistication only arrives with agriculture, with cities, with writing, that our ancestors before those milestones were simply waiting to become civilized. TAF-1 suggests they were already capable of something remarkable. They just didn't leave us a name for it. 9 meters of Atlantic water sit above a wall that has outlasted almost every civilization we've ever studied. It was built by people we assumed had no cities, no monuments, no reason to build anything permanent at all. They proved us wrong once. The wall is still there, asking us what else we've assumed wrong. So the question isn't really who built this wall. It's this: how many other stories like it are still lying underwater, waiting for someone to notice a line that shouldn't be there? What do you think they were building it against? The sea or something else entirely? Let us know below.